Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. Ramadan Mubarak. So, this was an older story, not too long ago, about a fight that broke out in Missouri. And it was the Hazelwood East High School students who got into quite a brutal fight. Now, there was this pretty young girl, and she gets pretty pummeled by a bigger, kind of busty, chunky woman, and this led to her having a seizure on the ground because the bigger girl repeatedly banged her head against the pavement. Pretty brutal attack. There were several takeaways I had from this. Was that none of the men stepped in to stop the head bashing. Okay? People just filmed it. Secondly, another example of the importance of knowing how to defend yourself and knowing when to run. There isn't weakness in running when you know you're outnumbered, and grappling skills, wrestling skills, stuff like that are very important for when you're on the ground and there's someone bigger on top of you. And this pretty girl was in a coma. She is dealing with a traumatic brain injury. Who knows how she'll be able to speak, her cognitive function, but the bigger girl didn't have the concept of sportsmanship in her mind. When I used to do street fighting, people would fight, but then when you'd break away, we stopped, and so-and-so went over there, I would go over to my group of people, and it was done. And then when you went back to school, bygones be bygones, people would show each other what they filmed, and that was it, right? But clearly, the fat girl didn't understand when to stop. And I think that is a big problem. Because now, she's going to be facing maybe a lot of years in prison, right? And rightly so, because she could have ended the life of that young woman. Now, I often hear people who don't live in America really mock self-defense for women, okay? And I think it's very important for American revert Muslim women, especially, to know you do not live in those other countries where violence isn't the norm. You can't live in the jungle and never have an umbrella when it's gonna rain. You can't live in Antarctica without some type of warm coat. You have to know the environment of which you live. And violence is a very common thing in America. Now, this feminine girl, she was beaten, and now because she didn't know how to defend herself, will have permanent damage. And she didn't have any male people to step in, and the males who were there couldn't care less, right? So the false notion that some men and women in other countries have, they say, well, if you just stay in your house, violence will never come to you. If you only go out with your husband, violence will never come, and that if you learn self-defense, it's useless, and, you can act like a worm and just lay on the ground and someone will have mercy. That's not how things work, at least in America. This girl was on the ground, having convulsions. Few people cared. The video was viral, it was quite brutal. You probably will see some edited versions now that don't show the fuller context. But people were defending the bigger girl because, it was like a mosh pit chaos. But clearly, the bigger girl had to have really recognized that once your enemy is defeated, they're on the ground, you don't need to be more excessive. Okay? She's already down. Now, there's a lot of people who, when they fight, you're passed out, they stomp on your head, right? This is very common. Just because you fell down doesn't mean they're not gonna still hurt you. So, you can be a feminine princess in another country, but when you live in America, Your beauty is not going to stop someone from punching you. Your beauty is not going to make an ugly woman feel sorry for you as she beats you. Your beauty is not going to make men step up to protect you, okay? So it's ridiculous to listen to people who don't live in America tell you that you don't need self-defense and that it's going to make you some butch lesbian by knowing moves. And by programming your brain to respond in times of fear, you will be quick acting. You can assess the situation better. And anyone who's lived through American violence knows that self-preservation is important. Now, if you're an immigrant and you haven't been assaulted yet, you haven't been robbed or beaten, or someone hasn't tried to stab you or shoot at you, you can look at America through rose-colored glasses and think that, America is paved with golden roads, but in reality, it's a very violent place to live, and a lot of crimes don't get reported. But we see them all the time because snitching culture is not very common in America. So plenty of people will watch you get assaulted and then not even talk to police to give them details of what happened because they don't want to be targeted in retaliation by local gangs. And so it's important for you as a parent to educate your daughter on self-defense. Now, a lot of Muslim men have attacked me for this opinion. They've mocked me for it, said I'm teaching women to not be feminine and all that. But again, these are foreigners who don't live in America. Okay? And if a man tells a woman that she doesn't need to learn self-defense to defend herself from other women, and that she'll never encounter violence ever, that's just dishonest. And so I'm here to remind you. Watch that video, the clips, right? Just type in keywords, right? Hazelwood, East High School, Missouri. You'll see lots of updates. And imagine you're that girl. Imagine it. Because it's a very common thing. In fact, look up right now how many women in New York City who are being punched by random men. Okay? It's quite a lot of compilations because the crime is so bad. And these are liberal atheists. Gem cities. So, look how wonderful the soft on crime, liberal atheist, progressive policies have made New York City for women. Let's just put it that way. They're against the Second Amendment, don't want you to be able to carry a knife, they mock male chaperones for women, and they defunded police, okay? And then crime goes up, and they wonder, hey, what's going on? And so, crimes against women are quite common, alright? And by you learning self-defense and practicing and working your muscles, it's not only a great workout, but it allows the muscle memory to know what to do in times where there's chaos. And it helps you to have a security mindset with more situational awareness. And I encourage you to enroll your children in self-defense. My daughter just upgraded her belt in her Taekwondo/MMA karate courses. And I've had her in self-defense classes since she was 3. And we often play fight. We go to the park. Her dad will bring the pads and, she'll hit and strike and kick. And we wrestle. She's learning. And inshallah, when my youngest is at 3 years old, she'll be going to classes as well. And she gets to see her sister practicing already. Right? And there's other children there as well. So she's growing up in the sportsmanship environment and teaching her discipline and understanding the movement of your body and controlling your breathing and sparring, right? She's seeing her sister spar and how important this is for women to have. It's fun to think you're Princess Jasmine and you're going to always be in your sheltered castle, and you're a perfect little Barbie who no one will touch because your beauty is just spellbinding. But in reality, violence against women is a very common thing, and it's impossible for you to just be in your house like one of my parrots, in their little cage. Actually, their cage is quite big, but you get my point. You're gonna have to interact in the world, and more men are pretty aggressive towards women. In fact, when I went to get a coffee yesterday, I had the stroller, and I'm waiting in the queue, and a guy cut in front of me, this Latino guy, and I told him in Spanish, oh, I'm behind her, and he was like, okay, and like he got super aggressive when I just spoke really normally. But the fact that he responded with aggression while a Muslim woman is just with her little baby in a stroller, instead of like, oops, sorry, my bad, shows you that the gender cordial civility of men is declining. And so for women to assume that men are going to come to your rescue is a big mistake, especially when a lot of the men are the perpetrators. And that guy, something Penny, he was a blonde guy, curly hair. He stopped a homeless man from harming people on the New York City subway, I believe. And he put the guy in a chokehold. The guy died, and liberals called him a white supremacist, and he's on trial fighting for his life when he was a good Samaritan. So liberals punish good Samaritans. Okay, they say, oh, the homeless guy was having a mental health crisis. But if you watch compilations, which I'm gonna start posting them more, of how many men who are drug addicts on the subways harassing women and no one steps in and women are forced to just look away, it goes to show you. And then also they had to deploy the National Guard to the subway because people were getting pushed off the platforms. Liberal atheists are very soft on crime, enable crime, and their godlessness shows in the cities that they rule. Okay, their values, their fruits are blossoming, and it's pure rot. And so women have to do the right thing and know how to defend themselves and value the Second Amendment, be educated on the Second Amendment, talk to police officers and understand their rights, and be vigilant whenever they go out, because if your husband is working, it's impossible, literally impossible, for you to schedule everything around where he can always be with you, especially with the prices of food, rent, health insurance. You're gonna have to venture out into the world with you and the children, and as crime is going up and the liberal journalists are burying those stuff in the Google search results, you're going to have to be smart and be wise. And I've always preached this. Just take a look at my playlists and past videos for years. I'm always encouraging women to have a security mindset. And so this Hazelwood East High School incident in Missouri is another example of your daughters will be in public school. You, as a dad, will not be there to save them. The schools are not going to protect them. Police can't be there. It's your daughter against a dangerous enemy. Okay? She has to know when to run, when to stand her ground and fight, and when she does fight for her life. Okay? And for your friends to understand honor codes of when someone's getting jumped, to step in and stop it. It's important. So use this video as a reminder to be wise and get your kids in self-defense classes. I also encourage you to play some martial art videos once in a while, bare knuckle fighting. Familiarize your children with the physical force that their body has. It is so important not to raise girls thinking that men are always going to be there to rescue them. You don't want to go woke feminist and say men are dangerous predators, but you definitely don't want to lie to them and make them think that every man is good and has their best interests. A balanced approach to the capabilities and faults of men and the new society we're going into. As the liberals destroy gender roles, the male protection, remember in the Sexual Revolution book I read, in the last section we read, she even mocked men, the author, men protecting women, right? Go ahead and watch that and you'll see the page. So Feminists often mock men for seeing themselves as protectors. This then means women have to protect themselves. Okay. So, it's important for you to talk to your daughters about self-defense and get them enrolled. It's not going to make them more feminine. Them being a ballerina or a gymnast is not going to protect their life. It's important. And ugly fat girls like to harm the pretty Barbie girls. And that is very important for some parents to realize. Jealousy, envy, and vitriol are really present in the fat, ugly girls who don't like what they see in the pretty, feminine girl. Now these parents are in the hospital with their brutalized child. And ask yourself, is your fantasy ideal of femininity worth that risk? What environment do you live in? And danger exists all over the earth, and you cannot escape it. So better to prepare and be wise. Just like knowing fire safety is important even if you don't ever have a fire. Knowing what to do when an earthquake is important even if you've never been through one. Preparedness is key. Let me know what you think. By the way, I'm still fundraising for, we're like 1/4 there for the wooden panel and the bookshelf holder, the book holder thing. And I appreciate everyone who has donated to that. It would really help. I don't want to use a credit card. You're going to pay interest. That's not good. And so, if you want to help contribute towards that, it'd be great. And thanks for tuning in.